This is Nancy March. I'm the editor of the Mercury here in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, and I'm with a group of staffers who worked on our project, Heroin Fatal Addiction, which was one of the winners of the March DFMies. This project is not a unique project. A lot of sites are doing things about heroin in their communities. It's becoming, unfortunately, a problem in a lot of parts of America. And we knew this wasn't a unique series. We had actually done something very similar a few years ago, but we felt that it was important to address this problem again in our town because we were seeing heroin overdose deaths among young people. It was very tragic. And we also were seeing in our police reports that heroin was having more of an effect on fueling some crimes like thefts and robberies and things like that. What made this series compelling and different, I believe, is that we were able to find people that were very close to it. We talked to mothers who lost their sons to heroin overdose deaths. We talked to police who deal with this every day, and we had some compelling interviews with former addicts. Everyone that we talked to was on the record and talked to us freely, and that also, I think, made our series particularly compelling. The impetus for the series started when we saw a couple overdose deaths in one particular suburban high school in our area, and felt that it was really really becoming a strong and tragic problem in that particular school district community. And then we realized that I personally knew one of the families who had lost a son. I reached out to that mom, and she was willing to go on the record with a friend of ours, which started the interviews that our police reporter, Brandy Kessler, who is now a reporter with the York Daily Record, did with those two women.
I think when we first started, I think it's important to note that when we first started talking to them, they weren't sure yet whether, in what capacity they wanted to be public. You know, did they want to use their real names? Did they want to? So it was sort of a leap of faith for us to interview them and through that process develop a trust, which in turn resulted in them saying, yes, we'll go on the record. You know, we want our names used, and that was a big deal. That definitely added the credibility, and Nancy did a great deal of communicating with them and sort of reiterating the importance of doing that for credibility. And it was difficult. I mean, it's tough when you're talking to moms who've lost their sons, and it was pretty fresh. I mean, this wasn't years ago. This was in the past year, and Colleen's son had passed, you know, much less than a year before. So it was difficult, but it was also really rewarding. And I think we all had agreed that you know, the people who agreed to talk to us, they did a lot more work than we did in putting it together. I mean, it was really, we were really fortunate with what we had encountered, you know.
Carl Hessler, our courthouse reporter, did a section of the series on something called drug court in Montgomery County, and also interviewed a former addict who was a drug court graduate. Carl, can you talk about some of the challenges in getting those people to talk to you?
Yeah, drug court has been in operation for a couple years in Montgomery County, and the judge was very protective of his drug court, and he didn't want anybody coming in there and upsetting things for the people, the hundreds of people who are going through it. So he needed to gain a trust, the reporter's trust, to tell those stories. And luckily, we did come up with a woman who was more than willing to tell her story. And she was very brave, very courageous to come forward, because many of the people did not want to talk on the record because of the stigma associated with heroin abuse. So Nikki Golden told her story, was more than willing to be forthcoming. Her main purpose was she wanted to help others who might be going through something similar. And she wanted to put a face to addiction and let people know that there was help out there, that it didn't always have to end up badly. So in the end, we learned that some people were touched by her story. Some people we learned had decided to get counseling after reading her story, and they realized that there was help out there. So she was a very big part of the story, and we were grateful for that.
Frank Otto, in his police reporting, was also seeing an increase in crime and thefts involving heroin and related crimes. Frank, can you talk a little bit about what it was like talking to the police about that?
Well, there was some copper tube thefts in Berks County, which is like our western border, and I started talking to I obviously talked to the detectives about it, and just sort of like at the end of an interview, he kind of said, you know that this is tied to heroin, and he sort of like told me that there was like a market where you steal copper tubing, you sell it, you straight trade it for heroin, and repeat the cycle. So I started looking into that, and then obviously I talked to other police, and obviously the police didn't have any problems with going on record because they're frustrated. This is very pervasive, and it drives a lot of the property crimes that they're seeing, especially daytime robberies and things like that. Just things that are frustrating. That their caseloads are already heavy enough, and they've got to deal with this kind of stuff. So that's that's mostly what I worked with, and like I said, that they wanted to talk about it. It was they're looking not necessarily they're looking for help, but they're tired of it. So
in the aftermath of this series, we have seen some positive things going on in our community. The two moms that Brandy interviewed for the series and that have been kind of keeping in touch with us and involved have said that people have reached out to them, and they're actually becoming involved in more support groups. We've seen more emphasis on education and prevention and trying to get the word out there. We were told that one middle school class is actually going to use our entire series as part of their health curriculum to get it in front of kids at an age and understand the path of prescription pills leading to heroin addiction. We've seen there are more drug take-back programs to get prescription opiates out of medicine cabinets, which is where a lot of this begins. And we also tried to raise some awareness about doctors prescribing and families being aware of what they have in their medicine cabinets that can lead to a heroin addiction. These aren't all the staffers that were involved. More people were also involved in this reporting, but we think that the project together did a lot for our community.